1 in 2 Canadians with a mortgage are worried about making their mortgage payment at renewal. And TREB's 2023 final month has been reported, and we had the lowest sales figures in over 20 years. Actually, 52% have indicated that they're either concerned, which is 24%, or somewhat concerned, 28%, about making a mortgage payment at renewal. And why is that? Why are Canadians worried about what is coming? Well, the reality is there's 2.2 million mortgages that will be coming up for renewal in the next 2 years. So over the next 24 months in 2024 and 2025, 2.2 million mortgages will be coming up for renewal. That's an average of 92,000 mortgages every month. Now, during peak periods, that'll be higher, like the spring and fall will probably be in the 100,000 range. But we're starting to see a trend where more and more people will be experiencing renewal time. And that renewal is going to be providing a lot of payment shock. Let me explain. The majority of these mortgages came out of payments in the 1 and 2% range, like 1.5%, 1.89%, 2.3%, 2.39. So all those mortgages are coming up for renewal, and they're going to be faced with higher interest rates. They're going to be faced with mortgages starting with 5s and 6s, possibly 7s, depending where they fall. And that is causing folks to start to be concerned because it will erode their cash flow. Their disposable income will be paying more interest every month. And to give people an idea of what this represents, when you're looking at a $500,000 or $700,000 mortgage, 3-4% could be a couple grand a month more in interest payments. The average we figure is going to be about $1,400 to $1,600. But for those higher tagged mortgages, those ones in the $700,000-800,000 range, it's going to be significantly more, and people are getting stressed out, high anxiety levels. People are worried about this. And we are getting a significant amount of calls from people witnessing this shock or experiencing this payment shock, and they're asking for solutions. They're asking for temporary ideas and concepts to get them through the next 12 to 24 months and before rates start trending downwards into a more reasonable level. But we are still seeing rates at a high point. The other thing Canadians are worried about is the cost of living. One of the, in another poll by Nanos, it was noted that Canadians are really expecting the House of Commons, when it reconvenes, to cover and address the issue of cost of living. Cost of living has come under a lot of stress, and it has to do with the housing costs ballooning. We're seeing mortgage rates go up. We're seeing rental costs almost double in the last 8 to 10 years. And we are seeing folks have less money to get through the month. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of people running out of money before they run out of month, and that causes significant problems. So we are seeing more and more folks pleading for this government and for politicians to start addressing this. The carbon tax is taking its toll. The cost of living is just going up. People can't find housing. People can't find reasonable housing. It's really causing tremendous difficulties for many, and we'll keep an eye on that. The next thing I want to talk about is the TREB stats. The December numbers came out very, very poor. Month-over-month numbers dropped significantly. I think they were down about 18%. The total number of sales for the year ended up at about 65,982 for 2023, a considerable drop over the year before, and this is the lowest level in about 23 years. So what is going on out there, right? So let's look at a couple highlights. And I like looking at month-over-month numbers. Now, a lot of realtors will say, well, Vince, this is December. It's not really a traditionally busy month. But I want to talk about some interesting issues on a month-over-month basis. Number one, sales are down 18% month-over-month. New listings down 63%. Sure, people don't want to list during the winter months, but we are seeing some folks struggling to get from underneath these high mortgages and want to sell. So we're probably going to see a flurry in the new year, but still 63% drop is significant. And active listings are down 38%. Now, when you break this down, I want to highlight a couple things. Number one, there are 73,000 or more realtors in the GTA. That's licensed realtors according to the TREB website. There are only 65, just under 66,000 transactions. That's less than one transaction, one sale per agent. Now there's two ends on a sale, a selling agent and a buying agent, but less than one transaction per agent. When you use the 80-20 rule, okay, it poses some interesting questions, okay? I kind of broke this down because I'm a stats nut, okay? So if 20% of the realtors are doing 80% of the volume, that means that 20% of these 73,000 agents are doing about 3.61 transactions a year, okay? Possibly double that because there's two ends, so it's about 7.2 transactions a year. The other 80% that are fighting for the 20% of the volume are averaging 0.22 transactions a year. Less than half. So there's a lot of folks that have their real estate license that didn't do a transaction last year. So my question is, where's all this experience? When realtors talk about experience and their ability to know the market, if they're not doing a whole lot of transactions, how much experience do they have? And we're going to talk a little bit about this in the two examples that came across my desk in the last 24 hours. Okay? I received a call from a viewer and follower, says he watches regularly, okay? And they came across a situation where they needed help with their renewal. Now, they called me yesterday, so we spoke yesterday, and they said they came into a renewal that took place December 1st. And on December 1st, they went from a rate that was at $299, and they had to renew at $809. So there's a significant shock, okay? But they sought out a new mortgage broker to get them a private mortgage, okay, in second position. They needed some extra cash to help them get through the next little bit. Now, they secured a second mortgage for about $75,000, and he was upset that they had to pay about $11,000 in fees and pay 12% interest rate for a one-year term. And he was disappointed that he didn't really get the full $75,000 because $11,000 went to fees. Those fees represented over 14.5% in annual charges. Okay, that's the annualized percentage rate of those fees. Plus the 12% they're paying, it's almost 27% in interest costs for 1 year to borrow $75,000. Now, I bring this up because number one, if you've been watching me for a while, why the fuck would you use a novice broker to get you private financing and then be upset about it and tell me? Like, how asinine is this? So I asked him what he did for a living. And get this, he was a fucking realtor. He was a realtor. So it's not like he shouldn't know. This is absolutely mind-blowing to me. So folks, if you're watching regularly and you need help and you want a second opinion before you get into a mess, give our office a call, please. Because I almost dropped to the floor when this guy told me he was a fucking realtor. Like, this is impossible. How can this be? And this is the issue I bring up, because there are a lot of novices out there that don't know what they're doing. And the next story takes the cake, or exemplifies or illustrates exactly what I'm saying. A good client of ours successfully secured the purchase of a home today, okay? And we've told them and we coached them, make sure you lowball, you're in control, you're a buyer, a first-time buyer. This is your time. You have the ability to put in lowball offers and see if you could get a deal. Found a perfect home for himself, put in a lowball offer and walked away. Not once, but twice, okay? So he was excited to tell me he purchased today. Now, I told him, I said, hey, send over the offer to purchase and listing, because we got to get the financing sorted out. So he goes, yeah, I'll get it over to you. And lo and behold, it's being held up because the listing agent didn't disclose that there's a rental lease and a rental lease agreement for the water tank and the furnace. Okay, so there's a liability there that wasn't disclosed, and they're negotiating a further discount off the price. So how does this happen? How does a listing agent not know to put in that clause? They're not doing a lot of fucking transactions right now, so they should know. So this is the problem I have. I think there's too many novices out there that don't have a fucking clue what they're doing, and they're costing their client money because they're ill-informed, they're inexperienced, and they're doing a transaction every 24 months because there's no activity out there. So if you're not busy, how can you know what you're doing? This is common, folks. And I'm not trying to pick on newbies, okay, in the real estate industry, because there's also some out there with respect to the mortgage business, okay? I clean up messes all the time, okay? You know, when I talked to that person who got the second mortgage, I asked, what were the fees? Did you understand what you're getting yourself into? Why did you use a novice? Well, I wanted to give him a chance. Well, he fucked you. He screwed you. Charged you $11,000 in fees. You gave him a chance? You paid his rent for a couple months. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So I caution you folks, please, if you or somebody you know is in need of help, put them in touch with a professional that's been doing this for a while. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I have been doing this for longer than an amortization schedule, folks. I've seen it all. Tens of thousands of transactions. I'm not saying it to gloat, but I sure know a few more things than the novices out there trying to suggest that they know what they're doing. Be careful, be cautious, be prudent, do your due diligence. There's a lot of desperate people out there making some silly recommendations, and the reality is you're going to pay for it if you don't do your due diligence. So I caution all of you. On that note, we're going to get into the Q&A, hockey helmet, where we're going to answer some questions that you sent in. So I want to thank you in advance. And we are going to also point out that the bond market popped up today. Okay, moved up a little bit, went on a little decline the last few weeks, popped up about 7-8 basis points, back up to 3.33%. So before you start celebrating that rates are going to be crashing down, hold your horses, folks. Respect the lag. Rates will be higher for longer. So button things up, tighten the chin strap, and let's go. Okay, first question. GTA real estate investor. Would market activity actually bounce back? Everyone talks about rate cuts, but even 3 cuts, the rate would still be high. Well, as I mentioned, we're going to be higher for longer. We will anticipate that the Bank of Canada will need statistics and data to be sure that the market is slowing down. We still have the December CPI number that will come out in the middle of January. That number, unfortunately, is not going to be good news because last year's year-over-year comparison month was very low. It was negative 0.6. So that's going to be tough to beat. So it's probably going to see a little bump before we start seeing a further trend downwards. So hold on your hats. It's going to be bumpy. I don't think we're going to be seeing any Bank of Canada rate decreases anytime soon. The prediction business sucks. It's very difficult. It makes people look like fools. So just prepare. Prepare for higher for longer. Okay? And if it does go down, it'll be a great surprise. It'll be a benefit to everybody. But I think the key here is anticipate that it will be rough. Now, as far as activity is concerned, I don't foresee there being a lot of it. Okay? Unemployment is going to be a concern. We will see unemployment rates continue to creep up. And when people are insecure of their jobs, they don't buy big ticket items. So we're not going to see a flurry of activity anytime soon because the qualifying is still difficult for many. We are seeing multiple people on mortgage applications on an ongoing basis. We're seeing 3, 4 people on title because we need more income to qualify for mortgages. So unless there's help from family members, caregivers, or whatever the case may be, we're going to see a difficult first quarter, possibly going into the second quarter of real estate activity. It's not good news. It's going to be a shit show. So just prepare for it and be ready for it. And if you're a buyer, be in control. Understand that you hold the cards and you do not have to succumb to bidding wars. Pick your place. Just be patient. SSRS CPA. Respect the lag. Love it. Love it. Thank you. Johnny Lukzic asks, what makes a residential borrower more attractive to a lender? That's an interesting question. Well, first of all, residential borrowers are living in their home. So the majority of owner-occupied mortgages, people need their home. They need to live somewhere. They got a roof over their head. So they're more likely to make their payments to keep that roof over their head. Residential mortgages, residential property are more marketable because there's not enough of them out there. So the eagerness or the ability to market a property to sell in the case of default will be easier. Okay, and commercial properties are trickier. They're tougher to finance. It's a longer process, and quite frankly, with environmental issues and inspection and all that sort of additional layers of fees and costs, they're not as necessarily as attractive as residential real estate. Residential mortgages are easily more tradable when you package them in mortgage-backed securities and mortgage bonds and stuff like that. So there is more appealing features to residential real estate. Hopefully that answers it. By 2026, will the fixed mortgage rate go down to the range of 3.5 to 4%? I have no idea. Who knows? The reality is, folks, is we are possibly going to experience a recession, okay? And when we get into that recession, you will see the Bank of Canada start dropping the prime rate. Fixed rates are always ahead of the curve, okay? Variable rates lag behind in their adjustment to the market. But the Bank of Canada basically controls the overnight rate, and their second tool is future forecasting, providing some outlook commentary for people to kind of grasp and see if there's potential that something could be happening in the near future. And those are the only two tools the Bank of Canada has. I don't foresee rates getting to the levels we were at during COVID. I just think that bus has left the station. It's never coming back. And in my career, which has been a long one, and I'm almost at the tail end of it in the next 10, 15 years, I don't think we'll ever see those rates again. I just don't foresee that we're going to get there. But I will say that rates will hover around the historical norm of 5%, 4.5%, 5%. We'll see if the Bank of Canada does anything with the stress test in the future. They made an announcement in December, OSFI did, that they will not adjust the stress test, and they only look at that aspect of it on an annual basis. So don't expect the stress test to have any changes to it in the foreseeable future unless the federal government comes out with something at the budget meeting. But the reality is they want things to slow. They are concerned about this renewal issue that consumers are faced with. And I want to point out, with 2.2 million mortgages maturing over the next 24 months, not everybody has a mortgage. There are a lot of folks that don't have mortgages. Those are seniors. The people that aren't concerned about their mortgage payment are people that are 55 plus. They are fortunately benefiting from higher interest rates on their nest eggs. If you look at the flip side of all this, the seniors have been taking it on the chin. Okay, they've worked their whole lives saving up money, and they've been stuck with only earning 1-2% in GICs during these low interest rate times, which we've experienced for a very long time, almost 15-20 years. So they are now reaping the benefit of higher yields on their investments, and the tide's turned. There are renters that are struggling to try to keep their rent controlled, and more are seeking rent-controlled facilities as opposed to non-rent-controlled facilities, because that is an issue in the city of Toronto on buildings built after a certain date. And, we are obviously going to be dealing with a lot of cost of living issues. Okay, it's going to be tougher, it's going to be tighter. People need to start working on figuring out how to spend less, make more, find part-time jobs, find alternative ways to generate revenue, and really focus on the needs as opposed to wants. And if we could get through the next 12 to 24 months intact, we're going to be okay. So there are probably going to be some deals out there. I encourage folks to seek out professionals, and I have been under a lot of pressure from a lot of people in the DMs to start a podcast. I hope to do that in the near future. I didn't realize how much work and effort is involved in doing that, so expect to see a different type of episode in the coming month or so as we work through that. For those that follow me on YouTube, please hit subscribe, share, and leave me some comments and some feedback about topics you want covered, and we'll make sure we get to them. So look out for the first episode of the podcast. We're going to be announcing some new things that I'm involved with, and I'm really excited about them, and I'm hoping to share them with you very shortly. So I want to wish everybody a happy new year. Enjoy, be aware of what's happening, be prepared, and we'll catch you next week. Take care.